Once again, Kansas does not disappoint us, and once again, Connecticut's Joey Logano will lock himself into the championship four at Phoenix after winning a thrilling battle between him and regular season champion Kevin Harvick. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the MDK Racing Victory Stop episode. My name is Jett Krause, and we're going to recap everything that took place from the 2020 Hollywood Casino 400, the opening round of the round of 8 for the NASCAR playoffs, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about. But of course, let's go over everything that took place in this race. It was a very cold day to kick off the round of 8 opener from Kansas. In fact, it was so cold that it was on record to be the coldest cup race since March 2015 at Martinsville. Now there's a correlation. Whenever the track and the air temperature is really cold, we see the speeds get much higher. It's really good for the engines when the temperature is a lot cooler than, let's say, if it were to be on a hot day, like let's say we're at racing at Daytona. Racing at Kansas in this condition with such cool temperatures allowed speeds to get really high. And with this package, we saw a lot of pack racing, or at least we saw cars bunched up together a lot longer than before. Usually, let's say on a restart with this package, if a restart happens, we see them get jumbled up for about 2 to 3 laps. This time, we saw them get jumbled up for around 4 to 6 laps, and it was a lot of pack racing, especially in the middle of the field. Martin Truex Jr., playoff driver who was 7th or 6th on the grid, he had to start at the rear of the field due to failing pre-race inspection twice, but he would quickly make his way up through the field in time to earn some stage points in stage 1. And like I said earlier, with the cool temperatures and with this high downforce, low horsepower package, caused for a lot of chaos to take place on restarts. Elliott was a race leader. He started on pole. However, behind him, from second place even, we saw, I think, Kevin Harvick, Kurt Busch, Joey Logano, and Ryan Blaney all in the top 5, battling side-by-side, three-wide racing for second place, all behind Chase Elliott. And even behind those guys in the top 10, top 15, we saw even more three-wide battles all over the racetrack. And this is kind of not surprising for a track like Kansas. We have seen in the past Kansas produce this type of racing on restarts, but still, regardless, it was still pretty exciting to see those battles taking place. It reminded me like a super speedway battle, because they were doing side drafting all over the racetrack, getting pushes off the corner, bump drafting. It was a lot of chaos on the restarts. So Byron would take the lead on the restart after the competition caution on pit stops due to him taking 2 tires while everyone else took 4. Kurt Busch, who was in the top 5 coming onto pit road, he had to start at the rear of the field due to going too fast on pit road. Now Byron, it looks like those 2 tires, it might have looked good on paper because of the cool temperatures. It did not work in execution. He quickly fell back to outside the top 10 while Chase Elliott got a good push from Kevin Harvick on the outside lane, but not so long after entering turn 3. Chase Elliott goes down to the bottom of the racetrack. Harvick stays up in the middle on the outside of Chase Elliott and passes Elliott for the race lead off of turn 4. However, even though that Kevin Harvick took the race lead from Elliott, Elliott's car was meant for the long run, and we would get that later on in stage 1. As the race started to get longer and longer into a green flag run, Elliott started to chip away at Harvick's lead. And Elliott would eventually pass Kevin Harvick for the race lead with 15 to go in stage 1. And that's about it. Chase Elliott wins stage 1, although Keselowski, Hamlin, Blaney, those drivers were starting to quickly catch up to Chase Elliott. They were 2nd, 3rd, and 4th by the time stage 1 ended due to Elliott being caught up in lap traffic. That slowed his performance down and allowed for Keselowski, Hamlin, and Blaney to run, or at least have an opportunity to charge at Elliott, but there was not enough time. Elliott wins stage 1. What was also interesting about Chase Elliott's win in stage 1 was that for the second half of that stage, he had 0 spotter help. Him navigating through the field, him going through lap traffic and passing Kevin Harvick and other cars, he did that all by himself. He had little to 0 communication, radio issues. He could not hear his crew. So because of that, he had to basically just drive the car all by himself. Now, I was very concerned as to how he was even able to stay on the racetrack, because I believe that's a black flag by NASCAR. You need to be able to hear your spotter, to hear your crew chief. That's a safety issue. I was very surprised that NASCAR didn't give him a warning or give the team something to let them know that, hey, you need to get this fixed up as quickly as possible. The team would eventually give him new earplugs to help out with the situation at the end of stage 1 during pit stops, but it didn't really work out. He would still have problems with radio later on in the race. 5th is Eric Jones. 6th, Alex Bowman. Kevin Harvick, after he got passed by Chase Elliott, he just reported the car was really loose, reported little to no rear grip on his car, so he quickly fell back to the 7th spot after leading a good portion of at least the middle part of stage 1. Martin Truex Jr. is able to quickly rebound back inside the top 10 to score some stage points. Joey Logano falls to 9th. He was around the top 3, top 4 for a good portion of stage 1. And Kyle Busch rounds out the top 10 in 10th place. Stage 2 began similar to Stage 1. Lots of chaos, 3 wide battles in the middle pack. But Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin, they started on the front row and were side by side for a few laps before Hamlin would eventually take the lead on the outside lane. But then we had a new challenger. Chase Elliott started to fall back, and Ryan Blaney, who was knocked out of the playoffs in the round of 16, started to add pressure to Hamlin. He kept on getting good runs off the corner of the racetrack at both ends of the speedway to get right up to the back bumper of Hamlin, but was never able to pass him. However, with them two battling, that allowed for Elliott, Harvick, Keselowski, and Kurt Busch, who recovered from a speeding penalty earlier in the race, to at least be in range of, in case, let's say, if the two leaders were to have a problem, they would be able to pounce on the race lead. And like I said in Stage 1, Chase Elliott's car is built to set up in the long run. So again, Chase Elliott, he fell back a little bit at the start of Stage 2, but then eventually, as we get into a long run, Elliott is starting to run down the two leaders. But even though Chase Elliott's running down the leaders, he still cannot hear his team. He even reported he's still having trouble with the radio, and even reported that the louder that his crew speaks, the less he can understand him. And then after that long green flag run, we start to see green flag pit stops take place for the first time today. And then we would see our first real caution take place with 17 laps to go. Matt Kenseth in the 42 car tries to make a pass on Eric Jones, slides up in front of Jones, not clear. Both smack into the outside wall in turn 4 to bring out the caution. Kenseth, I think Jones received a good amount of damage to the right front of his car. Kenseth took the car to the garage and was out of the race. And this was a good break for drivers like Matt DiBenedetto and Ryan Newman. Those were drivers that stayed out during that green flag pit stop sequence in order to hopefully get a caution, so that worked out in their favor. But on the restart with 11 laps to go in stage number 2, it's Ryan Blaney and Denny Hamlin out in front. Hamlin gets a good run off the corner to take the lead from Blaney. Meanwhile, you had drivers like Kevin Harvick and Chase Elliott, who pitted for just 2 tires, were able to keep up with the leaders. Harvick, though, he had a really strong race car, was able to get by Alex Bowman for 3rd place, able to get by Ryan Blaney for 2nd place with 6 laps to go, and then with the round 5 to go, Hamlin had a mirror full of Kevin Harvick for the race lead. And it was a really good battle. We would see Hamlin go down to the bottom of the racetrack always. Harvick will always go to the top end. Harvick gets a good drive off the corner, but because of this aero package and with the high spoiler and the dirty air, I'm not going to dive into that, but you kind of guess, you know what I'm going to say. Harvick gets the run, stalls because of that little beach ball bubble that's between the two, and Harvick's not able to close in enough to be able to really challenge Hamlin for the race lead, and Hamlin would hold off Kevin Harvick to win stage 2. 3rd was Ryan Blaney. 4th was Alex Bowman. That's a nice run for that 88 team, coming on strong late in stage number 2, and rounding out the top 5 is the 9 car of Chase Elliott. 6th is Brad Keselowski. 7th is Matt DiBenedetto. 8th is Mark Truex Jr. 9th, Kurt Busch, and rounding out the top 10 is Clint Bowyer. So Kyle Busch and Joe Logano started off stage 3 out in front. Kevin Harvick, who I believe started 5th or 6th, already made a 3-wide pass, I think on the first lap after the restart or just as they got past the start finish line. He needed to get the lead very quickly because we knew how bad his car could get or how much his car could fall off as you get later on into the run. And with this package and how it races at Kansas, you would rarely see any caution, so it was very important to have your car set up for the long run. And if you're Kevin Harvick and you're out in front at a car that's not so good in the long run, getting out there in clean air, it equates itself out. And in about 2 laps, Kevin Harvick was back out in front. Kyle Busch, who stayed out on old tires when after stage 2 ended, was able to hang on pretty nicely in the top 10. Chase Elliott, on the other hand, who I thought would be a big contender in having a shot at winning this race, he was in a mess, fell back all the way to the 10th position. And then with 8 and 9 laps to go, Denny Hamlin, a playoff and potentially championship contender, a driver that won the last 2 Kansas races, he smacks the wall coming off of turn 4. The car got really tight right in front of his teammate Kyle Busch, doesn't make contact with him, but he does hit the wall hard enough that he would have to come onto pit road 1 lap later and would come out of pit road 29th, 1 lap down. His teammate Eric Jones, who was involved in that accident earlier in the race involving Matt Kenseth, he was the first driver 1 lap down in 27th. So now Hamlin, he had to get by Jones in order to be in position for the free pass, so he could get back on the lead lap and get back in contention. And then with 74 laps to go, Las Vegas winner Kurt Busch, who was already in a must-win situation, really. He was 21 points behind, if I believe, heading into Kansas. He was running solid, 7th place inside the top 10, until he then reported that he was losing power. And the next 3 or 4 laps, him and his team was, coming up with ideas or trying to find ways to solve the problem. His crew chief even told Kurt to look at some codes on his tachometer or the digital dash that's on his cockpit. we were all wondering if is this an engine problem or is this something else, because Kurt was reporting that I think that all tacks looked good, so could it not be an engine problem? Could it be a fuel pressure issue? But 69 laps ago, engine let loose entering turn 1. The smoke comes out of both exhaust pipes for the one car, and he would be done for the day. Took it straight to the garage, and that would also bring out the caution. Now, the caution came out. Unfortunately, Denny Hamlin, who was 1 lap down, was not in the free pass position, so he had to take the wave around and bank on a caution, because if he takes a wave around and there's no more cautions, he would have to pit during a green flag sequence when everyone else didn't need to pit, and that would greatly hurt Hamlin's chances of having a good finish. And then on a restart with 62 laps ago, Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick started on the front row, but Busch, like in Talladega, was stuck in the middle and fell quickly to the back of the pack. Well, not to the back of the pack, to outside the top 10. He would eventually rally back to get himself inside the top 10, but Kyle Busch's chances of having at least a shot at winning the race were automatically out the door as soon as he got stuck in the middle and started falling back. Then with 46 laps to go, Tyler Reddick smacks a wall in turn 3 and almost came to a stop. Apparently, that's what I think NBC said. Nearly came to a stop in turn 4, which forced NASCAR to throw the caution, and that put Denny Hamlin back in the mix because he was in the free pass position when that caution came out. And then this is when the winning move takes place. Coming on pit road, Joe Logano and his crew is able to get out first ahead of Kevin Harvick. On a restart with 43 laps to go, it's Joe Logano and Kevin Harvick out in front. Logano then gets a really good push by teammate Ryan Blaney on the outside lane to help push him farther away from Harvick, who had no help to his inside lane. Eventually, Harvick was able to get back into rhythm, get by Blaney, and then go after Joe Logano. And then as we would see a very long but very intense battle between Logano and Harvick. Logano, being the driver that we know that he is, blocking very aggressively in the corners to try and halt Harvick's performance, or at least halt Harvick's momentum. With this 2020 package and the high spoiler, dirty air, is even much more of an issue nowadays. Harvick, he had the faster car, 100%. Harvick would get such good runs off of the corner, but then either the car will stall out, or if he got such a good run entering the next corner, Logano could just go up in front of him and he could take Harvick's line away, and Harvick would have to start all over again. And that happened for 3 or 4 times. Actually, no. 8 or 9 times throughout that whole 40-plus lap battle. Harvick got a great run, either stalled out, or Logano could simply just go up right in front of him, take his line away, and then Harvick would have to redo everything to try and run back down Logano. Lap traffic also played an issue in both Harvick and for Logano. There were certain moments during the race where lap traffic halted Logano that allowed Harvick to close in, but there were also some lap traffic that halted Harvick and allowed Logano to get away. In fact, the battle was getting so intense that even Alex Bowman, who got by Ryan Blaney for 3rd place, was even in the mix now, was within 0.8 of a second between 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. You could put all 3 cars underneath a blanket. And really, I was surprised by how good Harvick was during that last run, because we have seen throughout the race that his car starts to go away in a long green flag run. 40-some laps, that's a pretty good green flag run, especially for Harvick's car. So for Harvick to stay competitive really tells me that he had a really good car, and in my opinion, had a much better car than Logano. I obviously give props to Logano for a great job of holding him off, but you could tell Harvick clearly had the faster car. But unfortunately, Arrow was not on his side, and Joe Logano will be able to hold off Kevin Harvick to win at Kansas once again, and becomes the first driver to lock himself into Phoenix, where he will race for a championship for, I believe, the 3rd or 4th time in his career. So let's take a look at the unofficial results. By the way, I should point out, when Bowman was in contention, he got by Keselowski for 3rd place, not Ryan Blaney. Just had a bit of a brain fart moment there. So Keselowski finished in 4th, Bowman 3rd, Harvick is 2nd, and Logano wins the race. Kyle Busch in 5th place. 6th is Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott, I was surprised when Stage 3 took place. He just wasn't a factor at all. Early on, he won Stage 1. And so I thought, it looks like Chase Elliott might have a really good car, enough to have a shot at the win. He has won at Kansas before. But when Stage 3 took place, he just fell off like a rock. He was nowhere near for the race lead after Stage 2. And also, I should point out, why in God's name that Chase Elliott had no penalty or nothing like that boggles my mind. Because if I'm not mistaken, I don't think the broadcaster or NBC or anyone reported that Chase Elliott got his radio issues solved. I didn't hear anything about that. If someone could tell me in the comment section down below that if Chase Elliott and his team got that radio issue worked out, please let me know. But I didn't hear anything about it. And NASCAR states in their rules, you need to have a spotter at all times. You need to be able to hear your spotter during anytime you're out on the racetrack. You need to be able to hear your spotter. That's a safety problem. If Chase Elliott could not hear his spotter the entire race, first of all, congrats. Yeah, give a round of applause for Chase Elliott for him to be able to finish a race in the top 10 without zero spotter. But I mean, come on, NASCAR. I know it's your most popular driver, so you probably aren't going to do anything, but still, that's a bit, that doesn't look good on your part, NASCAR. Anyway, 7th place is Ryan Blaney. 8th is William Byron. 9th, Martin Truex Jr. Truex, he had a day where I felt like he could have been in the top 5 at least. The reason why you didn't really see him battle up for the lead, I feel like, was because throughout the entire race, the team always wanted to put tape on the race car because the temperatures were so cold. You could add tape to the car, make the engine run a lot more, which produces more horsepower to the car. For some reason, because the temperature was so cold, whenever the team would put tape to Truex's car, the tape would fall off. So Truex was never able to get at least full potential out of his race machine. But still, top 10 finish, solid effort for him. 10th is Christopher Bell. Quiet day for that 95 team. Nice top 10 effort for him. 11th is Austin Dillon. 12th, Matt DiBenedetto. 13th is Eric Almirola. 14th is teammate Cole Custer. Denny Hamlin, tough break for him. 15th position, was not able to get back inside the top 10 after he had that issue where he smacked the wall off of 4. 16th is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 17th, John Hunter Nemechek. 18th, Bubba Wallace. 19th, Michael McDowell. And Eric Jones rounds out the top 20. Some notables, Ryan Newman, 22nd. Tyler Reddick, 25th. Boyer, 26th. I forgot what issues he had, but he had issues with his race car somewhere around the middle of stage 2, I feel like. But tough break for him in his hometown track for the final time in his career, potentially gonna go out in not such a good note in the 26th spot. 27th is Daniel Suarez. 31st is Jimmy Johnson. Johnson, he smacked the wall 2 or 3 times throughout the race, so he had numerous problems with the right side of his car. Brought it out to pit road multiple times. I think he finished 6 or 7 laps down, but he also had a really bad day. And then finally, Chip Ganassi teammates, 38th place, Kurt Busch, alongside with the 42 car of Matt Kenseth in dead last. So, what are my thoughts on this race? It was a really good race. I'm not surprised. Kansas, as of late, they've always put on some really good races, but this is another reason. This is the pro and con of this package. The pro, cars are jumbled up. They're stayed together. Con, you can't pass. And I know we saw passes. We did see passes, but oh my God, simply you could have not such a good race car, but as long as you just take their line away, boom, you're like God. That's how much clean air means so much in these races, is that you could not have a really good car. Harvick had a much better car than Logano. I will stand by that. So Harvick had a much faster car than Logano. But because Logano's out in front, Harvick had really little to no chance at taking the race lead. And that's the problem with this package. Because, yes, it jumbles everything up, but it makes dirty air even much more of an issue, then it makes it even much more difficult for you to pass someone, for the lead at least. I heard certain YouTubers say that, that they couldn't find a reason as to why people don't like this package. That's a good reason. There's a reason why people do not like this package. It was an intense battle. Don't get me wrong. It was a really intense battle, and NBC hyped up their production near the end of the race to really let you know this is an intense battle. They even had a little side-by-side graphic with the cockpit cameras on the left side and the onboard cameras on the right side. It was a really intense battle, but I mean, come on. We knew Harvick had the faster car. We wanted to see Harvick try and pass Logano, at least attempt to take the lead, and it looked like he had zero chance at it. Harvick had get a good run and would either stall out or he would get his line taken away. And I know that the line taken away part has been part of NASCAR for years. Even when in the small blade, high horsepower package, it was still an issue. But my God, I love the bad taste in my mouth because I know that finish could have been a lot better than it was if it was run under a different package. But I heard people saying, people say they don't like this package. Look at the racing it's producing. I should keep in mind that it was 45 degrees, 45 freaking degrees at that track, okay? You take it to Atlanta that earlier in the summer, that was not a good race at Atlanta. And that was a mile and a half racetrack, okay? So, unless NASCAR can come up with a method to have all tracks run at 45 degrees, then fine, I'll buy it and say this package is perfect. If NASCAR can come up with a method to make Homestead Miami Speedway 45 degrees in track temperature, I'll buy it. I'll agree. This package is amazing, but until then, no, not for me. But it was still a good race, but I feel like it could have been better. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I gave it about a 7. But it was still a fun race. Don't get me wrong, but could have been better. But yeah, hey, congratulations to Joey Logano. You may not like him, I hate him, but he did what he had to do. He did everything he had to do right, and as a result of that, he has earned a ticket to the Championship 4 in Phoenix. I knew he said Miami, but yeah, that's going to conclude this episode of MDK Racing Victory Stop. Guys, tell me in the comment section down below, what are your thoughts on this race? Did you like it? Did you not? And until next time, my name is Jett Cross from MDK, and I'll see you guys next time.